right. Hello, everybody. Marcela Todd here, your host. And here we are at the Friends in Training Life is a Marathon podcast. And today we have a very, very, very special guest. And that is my friend, Pacer Tom. Pacer Tom, say hi.
Hi, everybody.
So, you guys, Pacer Tom is amazing. And some of you may know this, and some of you may not, but the world of marathon pacing, it's also amazing. Some of you may not even familiar with what pacers are. We're going to tell you. But for those of you who know, Pacer Tom is an amazing, amazing pacer. And and you guys know, just so you know, I know a lot of people, but Pacer Tom is very special and very unique. And he is my one person that I know that has run the most marathons that I've ever known. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about that. So, Pacer Tom, how many marathons have you run so far?
Well, between the marathons and ultras, it's now 775. So,
Wow, 775. So that's how many ultras is that?
8 ultras in that.
Wow. What distances?
Everything from the 6-hour to the 12-hour to the 50K to the 30-mile. Yep, just a couple of different times. Yep.
Wonderful. All right, Pacer Tom. So with 775 marathons, I know that you have run the 50 states quite a few times, haven't you?
Yep, 9 times. I've completed the 50-state tour 9 times, with one time being sub-4, 50 states. I was working on my second time with a sub-4 50, and I got to 19 states before I had to stop doing that.
Pacer Tom is totally amazing. Wow. And then you are also a World Marathon Majors finisher. How many times?
Twice for the 6 stars, and I
Oh.
just did pace Sydney last August, and I'll be pacing Cape Town this coming May. So I'll get Cape Town done, and then we'll look at maybe Shanghai in 2027 if that becomes available.
Oh my God, Pacer Tom, I'm going to be in Cape Town too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's going to be awesome. And I remember when I saw you in Sydney, that was so nice. So that's wonderful. I love that I'm going to get to see you all the way in Africa.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right, so tell me. So let's talk a little bit about pacing. So if for somebody who's out there listening to us and they have no idea what a pacer is, how about you give us some information on that?
Well, for like a marathon, pacers are just basically your support or coach. Some people call us pacers because we help people get a BQ time, and that means a Boston qualifying time. So a lot of the pacers are set up with Boston qualifying times to help people get into Boston Marathon. That's how the pacing started, and that was actually started by Amby Burfoot. Was actually started that way back in the early 90s. He came up with the concept of getting the pacers out there and getting them to the BQ time. He actually won Boston in 68, so he came up with the idea of helping runners get to Boston, so he incorporated that. So what we do is we're basically the coach, we're the support team. When I first paced Miami, the 530 group, I believe in 2008, if my memory serves me right. I think that's when Josh was the pace coordinator back then. And then, and that's what we do is we just help the runners. A lot of times it's first timers in the slower groups. But that's what we are. We're the coach, the motivator, we're the cheerleader. We just try and help do whatever we can to help the runner have the best experience possible they can have at the race or marathon, whether it's a half or full or 5K, whatever. Just to have the best experience and to get the job done, which means cross the finish line, preferably healthy, safe, and looking forward to another run.
Yes, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think you have to have a special heart to be a pacer because you're not running for yourself, you're running for other people. And it's a big responsibility too, right?
Yeah, we're all volunteers. We're not in any paid position, so most of us are sacrificing our racing times or going for an age group or a place in the marathon or a win, just to help other runners run. And it's a great way to give back. For me, it's been a great way to give back. I've paced almost 1,200 races throughout the world. So it's been a great way over 50 years to give back to the running community, from pacing the fastest runners to the slower runners. So I've seen it all from doing the fastest to the slowest times. It's been a unique experience for me to see the front of the pack and the back of the pack.
Oh, Tom, I love that. I'm a back of the pack lover.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong, all times are important, and but I think those people that are in the back of the pack, oh, it's first of all, they're out there longer,
Yep.
and for a lot of them, it's their first time experience. So it's like, what a responsibility, right? Like, we are helping these people have a great experience so that they can come back for more. And I just love pacing myself too. So I wanted to ask you, so Pacer, tell me your experience. So you've run 775 marathons and ultras combined. Out of
Yep.
all those, how many do you think you have pace out of all those?
It's somewhere around 500 something, I think,
Oh
somewhere
my
close to around there for the marathons and ultras. There was a little letdown in the 2000 and stuff because there wasn't a lot of pace in some of the events I was racing and stuff, or not racing, but just running for fun and stuff. I did a lot of individual pacing. So as far as group pacing, it's probably close to 500. But out of all the marathons, I probably only individually ran probably about 100, and otherwise everything else has been either co-pacing a friend or actually pacing in a pacing group.
That's
So
amazing. Wow. And so you're one of the original pacers out there, right? Because you said the
correct.
concept started in 1990s.
Yeah, we were I was one of the original ones that didn't start with the marathons until 2007, but I was pacing the halves, the 5Ks, all that stuff. We were back in the younger days, we were the 5K pacers back before they had a lot of the bikes and stuff. We were actually the running it instead. Now they use a lot of the bikes and stuff like that instead of the runners to pace them, except, the elites and the marathons, they use the pacers now. So it's a whole different ball game with the pacers now, especially in the Abbott World Majors and stuff, and some of the races that have the fastest guys have the pacers to get those guys running world record times.
That's amazing. Wow. So, Pacer Tom, what are you going to be pacing in Cape Town?
Cape Town right now, currently, I believe it's 6:30, but
Oh, wow.
that can always change, depending upon situations and injuries and flexibility.
I
So
see. Well, maybe I'll get to run with you.
yeah, yep,
Ah, that would be so cool. I know we had so much fun that one year, 2008, when we paced Miami together. That was a
yep.
lot of fun. Yeah. All right. So, Pacer Tom, how about out of all these 775 marathons, which one is your favorite and why?
Well, I always currently now I say my next marathon is my favorite because I'm not guaranteed that, especially with my health situation and stuff like that. But if I honestly had to say one, it might be grandma's because grandma's. This will be my 32nd year running it. So I'll be 30. I've ran it 32 out of the 50 years it's been around. But I also love Med City Marathon, which is in Rochester, Minnesota. I've done that all this is its 30th year, and I'm one of the 3 runners that's a legacy. So
Yeah.
I've done 28 years I ran the marathon, 1 year was a half because of heat. So that's another special one. There's actually a lot that are very special to me in different ways because I helped someone run or someone ran with me, or it was a significant marathon because it was a 50 state finish, one of my 950 state finishes. Um, or my sub four 50 state finish, they're all special in their own unique way. So for me, my favorite, I always say, is my next marathon because there's always going to be something special about that, and I really want to get to that marathon. I'm trying to get to 800 marathons. I got 25 to go, and I'm not going to
Wow.
not guaranteed I'm going to get there. So I mean, that's what I say, that's my favorite. It'll be my next 25, let's say that.
Tom, I love that. I love that. Listen, and how about your least favorite?
It's been some that I didn't like, but again, it's not that I don't like them. It can because of the weather, how I'm feeling that day. One of my ones that I mean, nothing against Disney, but Disney World in 1995, that was the second year they ran it. But that was back when they only had the 3 parks. They just opened MGM Studios. So you still did a lot of the background stuff. You didn't have the additional parks, but that was one of my probably least favorite ones.
Huh.
There's been a couple other ones that were just bad experiences because the course was mismarked or they didn't have
Oh,
water, aid stations and stuff. So there's been other things, but, overall, I mean, I'm just so used to doing so many races and stuff that I have to accept the good with the bad because I know there's going to be, races that are just you're going to do it in pouring rain. You're going to do it in 20 below weather. You're going to do all that stuff. I've done half marathons. I've paced half marathons in 19 below weather. I've done all that stuff. So
Oh
it's
my
like,
God.
you see all the stuff, especially come from Minnesota and, traveling to all the 50 states and going to different countries and running and pacing, you get to see it all. So you get the wide variety of what's out there.
That's wonderful. All right, so I'm glad you touched on the international. So how about your favorite international race and why?
I think it's really tough because, Rome is so different than Berlin, which is different than London, which is different than Tokyo. They all have their different personalities,
They
but
do.
I think it's really tough to, like, when you go with Rome and seeing the Colosseum and going by the Vatican and all that stuff. It's incredibly emotional for me, especially being a Roman Catholic, to see some of that stuff. So that's very powerful for me. But then again, when you're in London and get to see all the Guinness Book of World Records for the costumes, it's very fun to see that. The spirits, the people going to the pubs and having fun. Berlin, you have a very different feel. Tokyo's a very different feeling because, a lot of the spectators don't cheer. It's a very quiet, it's a very quiet experience. And that's so much different than, like, you take New York and Tokyo, it's like complete opposites. You got one where it's a boisterous crowd, and you got one where people just they're silent, and that's cultural. And so
It's true.
you have to accept the cultural differences.
Wow, that's such a great point, Pacer Tom, the cultural differences. I know my experience in Tokyo was very unique. I love Tokyo. I
Mhm,
and if it wasn't for running, I would have never gone there. I never
mhm,
really had the interest to go, but I'm so glad I did.
mhm.
Running takes us so many beautiful places, right?
Correct.
And
Mhm, it
so
does.
that's awesome. All right, so Pacer Tom, how about your most inspiring story?
I think there's a lot. There's so many. I mean, I could talk about. I mean, from people that have lost, 200 pounds to people that have given up their drug addictions to people that have given up their gambling addiction that gave up their addiction or their problem in life or the had a suicide attempt and then decided to do running to improve their mental health. There's been so many of those unique stories that I've seen with people that I've stayed in contact with that have used running as kind of like their aha moment where it's just their emotional support, their uplifting. The running community is such a supportive group and I found that especially, we can talk about a little bit about my cancer, but it's when I got the stage 4 cancer, the running community, I wrote a book called Running My Salvation from Stage 4 Cancer because the running community was my support network. And I think a lot of people, it's such a positive community. I know there's some bad apples in every group, no matter what group you're in, but in general, the running community is so positive, so powerful that it's just a great group to be in.
Oh, Pacer Tom, yes, thank you for sharing that. And you just mentioned your book, and I actually have it right here.
Yep.
And yeah, so tell us a little bit about this book and where can people get it? Actually, I know you wrote two books. We have this one was
Yep.
first, right?
Yep.
Um, and the my salvation running my salvation from stage 4 cancer,
Yep.
and this one is Boston Marathon Triumphs. And I I think this is so amazing that you have compiled all the stories in this book. So I highly recommend them, you guys. He's gonna tell us a little bit more about them and how to get them.
Yep. Well, the running my salvation. The reason why I wrote that book is pretty much I was my cancer is not in remission. It likely never will be unless a miracle or something happens. So I figured I had about 6 months to write a book. So I figured I'd do running my salvation from stage 4 cancer, and I wrote it basically in 6 months from stories of runners that have met along from pacing and running throughout my career. So we did that. And then when I made it past a date that I thought my doctor said, okay, I'm still alive. And then I thought, okay, for my next anniversary date, I would write another book, which was the Boston Marathon Triumphs, because Boston Marathon was my 6 star. That's where I got my 6 star in
Oh.
2023. And also because the American Red Cross was my sponsor or the person that the group that I'm raising money for Boston because I do it for charity because I'm not able to qualify because of my illness, the stage 4 cancer. So I use that as a benefit. So all the proceeds of both the books, which can be found on Amazon, You can order it through Amazon, but it's on multi networks like Barnes and Noble. You can order it through Kindle. You can order it Kindle through Amazon. There's many places that you can order them, but all the proceeds from the book go to the American Red Cross. So I make no money off the sales of the book. So I want to make sure
Oh,
everybody knows that.
Tom, you are amazing. Okay, so if anybody's interested, again, this is Running My Salvation from Stage 4 Cancer by Pacer Tom.
Nope.
Amazing.
And on the cover, I'll just tell you the 4 pictures on the cover. The top upper left, that's a picture of me at Little Rock Marathon. That's when Runner's World interviewed me in March of 2020 for talking about my stage 4 cancer. It was shortly after that book that the pandemic hit. The picture on the right of that is at the Kona Marathon, which was my 1,000th marathon race pace.
Oh my
That
God.
was my 1,000 race paced in 2019. I paced the 420 group. I had at that time was just getting diagnosed with my stage 3 cancer. They knew it was cancer. They just didn't know what stage. So shortly after I got done with that is Father Michael. He was actually in Runner World in 2000. This one here on the left.
Yeah.
He was in 2017 Runner's World. He lost over 100 pounds and he ran his marathon. He's a priest that always does the what we call the 26-minute mass before the Baton Rouge or Louisiana marathon.
Oh,
And the picture on the right of that is me running the Chicago Marathon. It's in the Chicago Marathon with my cancer, American Cancer Society thing on that I did the Friday night before.
wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Pacer Tom. So
And
tell us
then
a little bit about this one now.
yeah, the Boston book. So in the upper left-hand corner, that's some of the original women. Those are all the original 5 of the original 8 that ran the Boston Marathon in 1972. So you got Kathrine Switzer, you got Nina, you got Val. That was the original runners. You got Dakota, who's on the right, who's from Minnesota, who's an elite Olympian. Then you have on the left hand side, you got Bill Rogers, myself, and Dick Beardsley. Dick
Oh,
Beardsley was the duel in the sun in 1982, who finished second behind Alberto Salazar. Uh, Bill Rogers actually wrote the intro to the book, and Bill's the only runner who's won New York 4 times and Boston 4 times. And then you have Jack Fultz, who won the Boston Marathon in 1976, the only time
wow.
it was over 100 degrees. And
Oh,
remember, when they used to run Boston Marathon in the old days, there was no aid station. So the aid stations really didn't
oh.
come. So he ran it in that time when they would bring out the hoses to get the runners soaked. But there was no aid stations for the elites at that time. In fact, the elites at that time, they basically got a trophy and that was it. There was no prize money. There was no awards. There were no medals. There was no ribbons. There was none of these. So a lot of these runners never got ribbons, awards, money, or anything for these races. They ran because it was an amateur race, and it wasn't until 1987 that actually the money started coming in, which when the pros started coming in to run the races. So it's a lot of stories about people. In fact, I think this is the last book that Jeff Galloway actually wrote because Jeff Galloway wrote a little bit in the book. And I knew Jeff for over what almost 30 years. He and I have done marathons. I think we did it in 19 states. I'd have to check, but I think it was 19 states. So he did a little part on that. So I never got him, unfortunately, to sign the book. So I ran my last marathon when I paced Cowtown this weekend in his honors.
Oh, Tom, that's such a beautiful story. Oh, we lost Jeff last week and definitely broke our hearts. He was such an amazing athlete and did so much for the running community. And I appreciate you mentioning him. I was going through your book and I saw his picture. And another thing that really caught my attention, and we're in March, and March is when we celebrate International Women's Day or month, so they say. And I was looking at all these women and their story at the Boston Marathon. I mean, the Boston Marathon has a lot of history, right? Because it was like one of the first ones, right?
Yep.
And
Correct.
I mean, if you look at it back then, when you mentioned that there were not aid stations, money, no trophies, nothing. I mean, what would people do that every weekend? And things have changed so much. But I would like to ask you, Tom, since you're a wealth of knowledge and history, um, can you talk to us a little bit about the women? in the Boston Marathon at the beginning. So tell us a little bit about that. I saw that in your book, and I want you to please share a little bit so that people feel curious to learn more and get your book.
Yeah, well, Bobby Gibb was the first person to actually run Boston. She actually ran it in 1966. So the distinction is Bobby Gibb was the first person to run Boston in 1966. Kathrine Switzer, who registered as or KV Switzer, she actually was the first registered runner, female runner to run Boston. So that's the distinction between the two. So Bobby ran it in 66. Kathrine ran it in 67. Both of them ran it in 67. When they went back and Kathrine tried to get installed or whatever you want to say, her credit for the results for the race, the only way they would do it is if Bobby Gibb also got credit. So Bobby Gibb got credit for the win in 66 and 67.
Oh,
Kathrine Schweitzer got credited for being the first registered women to run Boston. And then you can add on Sandra Mae Berman and these guys and all the other ladies that came along. And then in 1972, in the book, it talks a little about that. It's interesting because there's a discrepancy in the Boston stats because it says that there was 9 registered women for Boston. Now, what's interesting about that, I talk in the book, is that there was numbers of 1 through F1 through F10, but
uh-huh.
only 9 registered. But then we had a woman that ran it as F10. We don't know who F9 was
Oh,
because F1 to F8, we knew who they were in F10, but we don't know who F9 was. So that's one of those little weird things that happened because one of the runners didn't run it and another one, we just don't know who it was. So.
that's so interesting. So interesting. You know what? So I'm like looking back. Catherine has done so much. Obviously, we didn't know much about Bobby because I think Catherine, because she was the first register, and a lot of people know her as the first lady that ran the Boston Marathon. But for those listeners that are out there that did not know this, she almost got kicked out of the course, right? Because she was a lady running the marathon business. Are you having here a female runner out of my race?
Yep, yep.
My God. And then you look at us now, ladies rocking the marathons.
Yep. Well, all these ladies talk about it, like Val talks about, and then Bobby. Bobby basically had to go to a running store, and all these ladies were men's clothes. They were men's running shoes and all that stuff. Val talks a little about there wasn't female products, there wasn't any of that stuff, and she talks about how the differences from when she ran Boston in 1972, and then she ran it in 2022. She's the only female in the book that ran it 50 years later. And she'd be
Wow.
another one that would be great for your podcast to talk to. She would be awesome because
Oh, definitely.
she's a very unique person.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'll get her contact from you later.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's awesome. So Tom, and just moving forward, fast forward like what 30 years later, and the whole history of the marathon and how it has changed from the beginning to what it is now. Um, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, just for me and running, I mean, you got to realize I've been running since 1975. So when I started running 5Ks in the 70s, there was predominantly younger guys running, very few females, and you never really saw many guys over 40 running. You never saw very many females. Then in 80s, it started to get slowly older guys running and a few more females. The 90s, it switched. Now you go to the 5K races and it's almost predominantly more females and more females in some of the halves. And maybe marathons, it's about half and half. But it really is changing. It's very much a diverse field out there, and I love it because now when you pace, you see so many men and females. You see everybody out there. And the only thing that's a little different, it's the good and bad about it, is the competitive part, I think, is a little gone because everybody now brings their strollers out. You bring your dogs. Back in the old day, if you weren't running under 20 minutes, we were starting to take the 5K down. If you weren't running under 20, 30 minutes, the 5K was already being taken down. If you started taking down a 5K at 30 minutes now, there might not even be a third of the runners even across the finish line now. So it's very different how it went from a racing atmosphere to a fun atmosphere. So there's good and bad with that. But I love the fact that there's all these charities doing the fun runs. But the problem is now it's a saturation of the market. There's so many marathons out there that are, trying to get your money, and the charities are trying to get your money, that some of them aren't surviving, which is sad for me to see some of the
Mhm.
ones that had been around for 25, 30 years that just got kind of sucked up in a way, even though they just didn't get the sponsorship, and, all the older runners were passing on and the younger ones didn't have an interest in it.
Yes, Tom, I agree. So interesting. I mean, one thing I love about it, I see that in the past, a marathon was really for elites. It was more competitive. It was
Uh-huh.
really more. Actually, when I started running, when I was first invited to my group friends in training, my first thought was like, I can't do that. I'm not an elite person. There's no way I can run a marathon. And so I guess that was the mentality I had. It was back in the 1990s, late
Mhm.
90s. And, but I still had that mentality. The marathons were just for elites and that I was not going to be able to do it. And then the person who invited me is like, no, 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 it's for everybody. Just come. And so I went, but in my head, I was like, there's no way I can do this.
Yep.
And now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, it's just the one thing that I do love about now, I feel like it's beautiful that marathons are for everyone. Anybody who
Mhm.
can,
Yep.
wants to do it and has the opportunity. But I
Mhm.
totally agree with you in the sense that, it's kind of expensive. I was actually having this conversation with somebody last
Mhm.
week. It's just, it's just getting really expensive. And then
Mhm.
sometimes people want to enjoy, but it's hard and
Mhm.
so that doesn't make it as accessible to everybody. And then
Mhm.
that touches here a little bit because we're passionate about running. We want
Mhm.
everybody to enjoy the sport. We
Mhm.
want everybody to enjoy the finish line. And so I just wish, like, a dream of mine, Pacer Tom, that I want to share is
Mhm.
I would love to bring my friends in training group to run Boston.
Mhm.
And I know it's difficult, but I have to tell you, I had that dream with the New York City Marathon and we made it happen.
Yep.
With thanks to Marathon Tours. So
Mhm.
we did it the year before the pandemic. And we were able to go as a group and run New York, and it was an amazing experience.
Mhm.
And so I hope that someday I could do that too, with my group at the Boston Marathon. So
Mhm.
I'm just sharing that dream with you.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I say,
So
the big thing is getting the qualifying times, and I mean that's the
good.
thing with Boston. It's the qualifying times. It's all that stuff. Yeah, I mean it is tough. I mean Boston was what I think $385 this year to register for it, so it's not a cheap event. And like I say, a lot of these races, when I first started running, a typical 5K I think was $2, and then
Oh
it was
my
a
God.
dollar, a dollar, and some of them were some of them were two, three, four, $5, and then it was like an extra dollar if you wanted the T-shirt. There was no medals, so that's the thing. The more the
Oh
bling
my
you add on, which
God.
is the medals and all that stuff, and when we finished, we'd get a water and a banana. That was it. There wasn't aid stations. There wasn't, Gatorade wasn't even yet and almost just invented. It just started coming out. We had the power bars in the course, the old malt nut power bars. It was very different. And today's runners want so much bling and so much, the t-shirts, they want the jackets, they want it
Spoiled.
all. And it's like in some races, especially some series, it's all about the bling. And the more bling you get, the more cost it's going to be. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
and then they have the series races, and that's how they get you. Okay, let's do a series. Let's do this. Or the
Yeah.
challenges. Let's do the 5K on Saturday, the marathon on Sunday. And instead of spending 200 for the event, it's now 350 because you're doing two events. So they really do kind of hook you in to the event, which is wonderful that you're able to do a lot of diverse things.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, Pacer Tom. So this podcast is called Life is a Marathon. And, I always compare a marathon with the marathon of life, right? Like we all
Mhm.
have our great miles where we feel strong and happy. And then we have those miles where we feel like, oh my God, we're dragging our feet. And we're like,
Mhm.
when this is going to end.
Yep.
And, so for those times, so tell me a little bit about your marathon of life, Tom. Tell me about your happy miles. Let's talk about your happy miles.
I mean, every mile to me is been happy for me. I feel very lucky to run. I was running, I was doing well until basically 2017. I just won the Tulsa, was it Road to Road marathon in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I won it overall, which was surprising because nobody showed up that day. And it was shortly thereafter, it was like, okay, I couldn't break 4 hours, and that's what I was trying to do, break 4 hours in my second time through the 50 states. was trying for a 4 hour at the Mad Marathon in Vermont, couldn't do it. Pacing the 4:30 group in Wausau, Wisconsin in 2018. And it felt like I was running a 100 miler that day. Went to
Oh,
the doctor and, they tested me for, anemia, wasn't that, thought Lyme disease, wasn't that, wasn't anything. So then they did the full physical. They found my PSA was up. They thought, okay, maybe it's just an infection. That's what's happening. It wasn't. Then they did the MRI. They did all that. They did the biopsy. And the next thing I know, after I got back from Kona, I got stage 3 diagnosis. And then
oh.
shortly after that, I started my treatment. Then I had my prostate removed. And next thing I knew, in July 30th, 2019, I get stage 4 cancer, and then my whole world changed. And so that day, I sat at home and, with a 6 pack of beer and a bottle of bourbon, and I said I could keep running, or I could, or just stop and drink and have some fun and just read books. And I decided, nope, I'm going to keep running. And I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. And that's what I did. And I'm glad I did, because I'm at 280 marathons now and almost 400 races since then. And my goal is to be the first person to hopefully ever do 300 marathons with stage 4. And I want to make sure that I do even more than that, because I want that goal to be so tough that the next person that has to break it has to really work for it. Um, so that's what I'm trying to do. And there's no guarantee that I'm going to be, running in a month or two. So I'm doing the best I can every day I can. I started double treatments in November last year. So it's even tougher now than it was a few months ago. But, hey, I made it past my expiration date, which was, January 30th of 2026, which was my 3 to 5 years plus minus 18 months. So every day is a blessing after that. And let's see how far I can go. And so life is a marathon, and it really is. You get up every day. I have good days and bad days. Yeah, it's just like a marathon or a race, and that's the difference between a 5K and a marathon. Is you can have a bad mile in a marathon, it doesn't really matter because you got 25 more, whereas in a 5K, you have less time to make it up. In a marathon, it's just like anything. You gotta think, I got 26 miles. If I have a bad mile, I get 25, I can make it up. So it's just like my years in life. I've had the greatest years of my life, and I've had some down years. It's hard to believe that once, what is it, 1/7 of my life I've spent with stage 4 cancer. It's crazy when I think of that 1/6 of my life already with stage 4 cancer. But it's been some of the best times of my life, because I'm meeting people. I'm still seeing you. I got to see you at Mad Marathon. Was it last year or whatever it was? Like I say, it's all that stuff. I still get to go out and do what I'm doing. I just do it at a slower time. Instead of seeing the people at the front of the pack, we have more fun in the back of the pack, as you know, when we did the 5:30 in Miami. So I get to have a lot more fun. I get to see different people, and I get to experience things that no one's ever experienced before.
Pacer Tom, you're amazing, amazing. But what an inspiration. So you said you have run how many marathons after stage 4 cancer? 100 and
280. Yep. It would be 272 marathons and 8 ultras. So 280. Yep. Past the 26.2.
my goodness. And then your goal is 300. Oh my
Yep.
God. Well, we're rooting for you, Pacer Tom.
What I hope. That's what I hope. Cape
Uh,
Town, oh, Cape Town should be about Cape Town should be close to 285, about 285, I think, could be Cape
wow.
Town.
Well, we need to celebrate.
Yeah.
Oh, Pacer Tom, you have been such a joy to talk to. And before we go, I just want to ask you. So we were talking about the happy miles and then some challenging miles. If anybody's out there listening that is probably going through, tough times and they need a little encouragement with everything that you have done, what would you tell them?
I think for me, the thing is I know if I have a bad day or a bad mile in a race, it's just like anything in life. You're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have setbacks and stuff, but just remember it's always temporary. Everything in life, I think, is temporary. Anything you do in life, even the happy times are temporary, because you can get sadness in that. It's life is a roller coaster, and you got to enjoy the ups and downs, because I always think if you don't really know what the highs are until you go through the lows, and you don't know what the lows are until you've had the highs. So you got to just enjoy the up and down moments of it. And just remember, it's just like a marathon. You get through that 1 second, you get through that 1 minute, you get through that 1 mile. It's just like life. No matter what happens, you get through it. And if you need support, you have friends, you have family, you have church, you have support groups, if you need mental health, there's mental health counseling. There's always somebody there to give you help. If you're a drug person, there's Al Anon. There's always somebody gambling. There's always somebody to be helped. Don't be afraid. to ask for help. And a lot of places now you can do it anonymously, whatever. Don't be afraid. That's the big thing. It's just like there's never a dumb question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There's never a dumb time to ask for help.
Wow, Pacer Tom, that is amazing. What a great, great advice. And it's so true. I always feel like people need to know that we're not here to make life alone. You can reach out. You can reach out. There's
Mhm,
community, there's help, there's God, there's
mhm,
faith, there's
mhm.
there's always someone who will be willing to help. And the funny thing is when you do that, then later on you're gonna be able to help somebody else, right? Because somebody
Correct.
can help you and then you'll be able to help somebody else. So Pacer Tom, you are amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Cape Town and we
Yes.
will celebrate those 285 marathons after
Yeah.
stage four
Yes.
as they're together. And thank you so, so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful time. And it's hard to believe it's already been almost 20 years since we paced Miami
I
together for the
know.
first time. And we're still young.
Well, we are. We are.
Yeah.
All right, Pacer Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye
You
now.
too. Bye bye.